All right, what's up, internet? We are going to do some prep for an upcoming game that I have paired for next week in my Wednesday night chess league. And this is a rare situation where I feel like I can actually prep. Most weeks, I'm not playing somebody that I've played before, and in this case, I'm actually playing somebody I played in just recently in the last video. I played as with the white pieces, but I have a game against the same opponent, Lennart Mathe, in with the black pieces, and I in fact also played him in March, and so in that game I played black. And so what I was thinking was, I've just played a pretty dynamic game against him last week with white. This was my previous video, the only other one I've done in 2026. But yeah, I thought that I would go back and visit this game that I haven't looked at in a while, and then see if we can prepare a little bit for our game this week. So let's hop into it. We have so I'm playing against Lenny. At the time I was rated 2013. He's rated 1918. So we're pretty close in rating. And that was in round 4 of the 7-week tournament, the San Diego Club Championship. All right, so he starts with d4, go d5, and then we go into c4, e6. So classic QGD, which is also what he played against me in our game just a couple weeks ago. And now we have knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, bishop e7, and e3. So white goes for the more conservative e3 without putting the bishop outside. So this is something that I should keep in mind, to expect most likely something similar again. A big thing to look at, and again, I haven't looked at this game in a couple months, so I'm learning it alongside you. But yeah, I don't remember what he does with this bishop, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. But if you're playing black from this position, and you can see the computer eval, it's just dead zeros, you're perfectly happy getting this position out of the opening. And let's see, so I go for the quick castle. Bishop d3. I know at this point some folks will capture here. Interestingly, the computer actually likes that. So yeah, we'll go through this whole game real quick, and then start thinking about how to prep against our opponent for next week's game. And it is interesting to note that the computer likes this, and I might entertain this for our game coming up. All right. So instead, I went with, this is the structure, the system I've been playing a bunch recently. Yeah, computer either likes trading or going for the strike with c5. I like to set it up a little more conservatively, and so yeah, that's why I went with the b6, knowing that I want to play c5 eventually, but also I really like playing these structures where you get the fianchetto on the queen side. I've found it gave me some really good play in a bunch of games that I've had recently. So this was an idea I mentioned in the last video, where my opponent really loves to throw the knight into e5 or e4. And in fact, that was something I even thought about in the game, and he did that in the previous game. And the reason why I thought that was because he went for it aggressively in this one. So he goes immediately for the knight e5, which I wasn't too concerned about at the time, and computer does not like it either. It very much wants me to capture, to trade, and then just get this nice bishop, which makes a lot of sense. So if I like playing these b6, bishop b7 structures, I should probably look to trade. And generally the rule for folks who play these kind of openings, a lot of times you're waiting for white to commit the bishop once, then you capture to make them move twice. And you, with the thought always that if they decide to capture, then you're actually perfectly happy. Your bishop gets some good scope. You can play, you know, trade and then c5, bishop e6, and play the structure with the hanging, what they call the hanging pawns there. So yeah, we got knight e5, I go bishop b7, and I'm thinking that if I want to develop my knight to knight b to d7, I need to keep the knight from coming into c6. So I like having the bishop here. Our opponent castles here. And yeah, it's interesting that it's already giving black an edge in all these lines here. Part of it, I think, is because white's bishop is actually developed worse than any piece that black has as soon as we get this knight out and probably trade. And we have the prospect of getting a very nice, powerful bishop here in the corner. So yeah, what do we go into? I'm debating about when I'm going to throw in the c5 move. I thought that was what I would want to be playing for. But again, it's interesting to note how much the computer wants me to actually trade off this d5 pawn, which makes a lot of sense. So my opponent, really loves getting this kind of solid grip on e5. So he goes for f4. And my thought here was, all right, now I definitely want to strike back in the center now that they've played aggressively here. And now I can't just let myself get cramped and run down. So I need to strike back. Opponent goes queen e2. So yeah, let's see. Engine basically says any move is fine. Any of these captures, rook c8. I had an idea here that I went for, which, maybe we'll see what the computer evaluates that at. But in my mind, I was thinking if I get my knight to e4, it's actually stronger than his because I have this prospect to back it up. And also it's never going to get booted, right? Because both these pawns have moved past f3 and d3. So I'm thinking if I go for knight e4 and knight f6, I get a really nice knight in here. I could even throw in like booting out their knight if I decide to not reinforce the knight in that way. And I also don't mind, if he captures here and then I get this very powerful pawn on e4. I get to support it with f5. I can capture here and then go after the d4 pawn. If he captures, then I go after the e3 pawn, and so it's just looking really nice. So I went with this move, but clearly computer does not like it, so we definitely want to understand why. Alright, let's just plug in our opponent's move real quick. He went bishop d2. Let's look into this line a little bit. So once takes, d1. Now all of a sudden it's giving, plus 0.1. Yeah, this is the next level kind of thing in chess for me that I need to understand why this position is rated so differently than just trying to liquidate this center. What do these lines look like? Rook c8. Basically any move. C takes d5, we have d takes c4. This makes sense. I can't see my opponent playing d takes c5. If he goes for this way. So I guess it just always wants me to give up this pawn to activate the bishop. Okay. And so, because even if they go for e4 to try and block you up, then d4 is weak, and the pawn can't be supported from f3. These f5 pushes are not too scary. Yeah, so... Okay. So yeah, it's good to know that my idea here was not the strongest way to handle this. And it seems pretty consistent that my position gets really nice if I open up this bishop. And I had a different game later in this tournament, actually. Was it the very next round or the other time I played this guy? Yeah, the very next round, actually, where I got a really nice attack using that bishop. So, sorry, my score sheets are falling apart here. I need to get a stapler and a real scorekeeping notebook. Okay, but yeah, so let's just finish up the game real quick. So we're at 94, bishop d2, which computer really hates. Which in the moment, you know, seeing that move, that didn't really understand the idea of that move. You know, there's some openings where white will play this f4 and try and swing the bishop around this way. Maybe that was the thought. But yeah, so on bishop d2, I go knight df6, which it thinks is a missed opportunity because it just wants me to trade off. Then trade bishop g5 and just say, hey, this whole structure is very awkward for you. What happens on this takes? Oh, because it's tactics. Yeah, never get into a tactics battle with a computer. And so that's why this trade was not recommended earlier to the same degree or at all. But because you can draw the queen out to d2, and then if you trade off all the pieces, there's all this stuff in the middle, but you can actually execute a pretty powerful pin, forcing the f takes, and then you get the bishop out here that's really strong on this diagonal when your opponent does not have a dark squared bishop. Because yeah, it's so unintuitive to trade off this amazing knight for this really crappy bishop. But makes sense. Tactics. Alright. So anyway, I played knight df6. He goes rook a d1. And now, you know, this for many moves now, we've had all this tension here of who's going to capture and blow things up first. And I saw an interesting line here, which is, I went about it this way. D takes c4, which computer slightly preferred. And so my opponent goes bishop takes c4. And then I go into this liquidation here because I saw an interesting line, which I think my opponent thought that they were going to trap my queen after I captured here with check, but then they have bishop here blocking it. The rook cuts off all the queen's escape squares. The queen can't escape here, but then I calculated that I have knight c3 at the end of that, which is what ends up happening. But computer very much does not recommend that, and it likes just knight d6 and then trade. Okay, so we need to see what was wrong with my plan here. Oh, so because white just goes for the counter pin against you here, that would have been the way for them to handle it. I see. But yeah, so given this calculation, it made sense. So my opponent thought they were trapping my queen here, as we mentioned earlier, with this nice setup, but I have this intermezzo. Knight takes c3. So then now if he takes the queen, I take his queen with check, and I'm still up that pawn. So my opponent just goes, which I've definitely noticed from my couple games, my opponent plays very aggressive, does not choose to trade it, and instead sacks another pawn to get some activity, which now these bishops are looking pretty scary. But my thinking was, I still have plenty of defenders for my king. f5 is not all that scary. The bishops look nice, but are they doing all that much? It doesn't really seem like it. So I pull the queen back to a5. Ooh, which is a blunder. Fascinating. Okay, because I was looking at, you know, these three moves, and so it's interesting that I chose the worst one. Also cute little. There's a tactical way to defend the queen as well, but that gives you an isolated pawn, so I wasn't planning on going into that. Okay, we'll have to figure out why queen b4 is better by seeing this line. And so it looks like it wants f5, and that now the white has full compensation because of the pressure here. So what happens on takes? So, because here I was thinking I just have something, I have stuff like bishop c5, but now knight takes f7 is a problem. Knight takes f7. Rook takes. So what happens on takes here? It's because there's checkmate. So he goes down the piece. You have to see that you sack the two pieces, then sack the exchange. So two pieces for the rook, then the exchange to end up down a piece, but because you have this, you either win the piece back, but it looks like there's actually mate. Wow. Okay, that is a hard combination to find. But clearly my opponent had the right ideas in mind here. Thinking about how to blow this position open and make it dangerous. Because they end up playing knight takes f7, which doesn't work, but it was very interesting and dynamic. So seems like they were on the right track. If they had gone for f5 first, it would be pretty dangerous. So let's see. Let's look at that queen b4 line instead. So this is better than the other line because on takes, what happens on the same rook takes? I go rook a d8. So I guess it's all just fine because you keep the bishop defending here. On any kind of capture here, this is defended by the queen. And that's the other reason why queen on a3 would also be good, because it's defending that. Because there's definitely some problematic lines where, with what I played, queen a5, because on takes, right, one of the problems with playing this move like in the other line is that, first of all, takes, you know, your queen's under attack. Although I guess you still have this guy, and then you're dying here. So I guess it's not just because the bishop's hanging, but also this discovered attack. And if you take, then, you know, they have this, and you're pretty toast here. Yeah. All right. Good to know. Well, this is why that fundamental principle of don't have undefended pieces, even if the position doesn't look like it's going to explode tactically and that's going to matter, there are lines where it matters. So yeah, what the game ends very quickly in what actually happened. He goes for this attack here, but then I can just take. You know, if they take and then they're just going into the, you know, trading these, then I'm actually very happy because I have two very strong, or three well-placed minor pieces against one for the cost of a rook. You know, I am also losing the two pawns, but I was already up a pawn. So basically I have the two minor pieces for a rook and pawn, and these bishops are going to be so powerful. They're going to have so much scope into that. So my opponent does not go into the bishop takes line, which I was, you know, prepared for, and figured that would be a great trade for me. I figured they had to go aggressive with this guy. There are a lot of threats here, of course, with white threatening takes here. If I go something like rook here, then I hang this bishop. But after queen e6, I throw this bishop into d5, which is just a beautiful move that kind of holds everything together. Now he can't take here because the pin has been interrupted. The queen's under attack, and if the queen is forced to retreat, and then we just, you know, here and then trade or something, then I'm just up a piece. So clearly that sacrifice did not work. So my opponent actually resigned after bishop d5. But just like the last game I played against this guy, I have a better position, and then, but he has piece activity. He's not afraid to sacrifice for activity, and just like in the other game, he has some very prime opportunities, has a lot of the right ideas, but just didn't quite execute it right in this game by going for this knight takes. And I had a lot of these. I thought that this queen a5 move was stronger than the other alternatives because I was looking at the d5 square. And so I thought that having the queen covering d5 as an extra defender would be a nice boon to have in the case of any of my pieces ending up here, which is what happened in the game. But it turns out that the queen is actually too exposed here because of this, the rook coming here, and that attack across, even though you'd think that that's pinning himself. Wow. So yeah, I had some ideas, but clearly they were not correct. Or maybe in the fundamentals they were correct, but in the tactics they were not. Cool, very interesting. But yeah, it was a good game, and I most likely have another game just like this one coming up. I would expect a similar opening out of my opponent. Actually, hang on one second. Oh, hey, we have some people chatting in here. Oh, is Dead Droop still here? No. Oh wait, why am I typing? You can see I don't really know what I'm doing with this streaming stuff. Where are you from, Echo Live? Hang on, I'm gonna be right back. Okay. Indonesia, neat. I don't know too much about Indonesia, but I did go to Bali when I was a kid for a wedding. So yeah, beautiful place, Bali at least. I don't know anything about anywhere else, but nice place. Thank you. I don't know how it's a nice place. I guess I have a door and I have a bookshelf. Glad those are appreciated. Okay, I think I'm going to stop the recording and I'm just going to upload this little analysis for YouTube, but I'll keep the stream on for a sec.